In this video, I'll be running through the concept of rolling reach and why it kind of doesn't even matter, but it's an important concept to be looking at, particularly if you're within the 7 to high 7-figure range. But as you start to reach into 8 to 9 figures, rolling reach starts to become a really interesting concept, particularly within the Australian market. And I actually start to question whether it's even applicable. And I'll try to demonstrate an argument behind why that's the case within this video. Now, firstly, I want to give credit. This concept I didn't come up with myself. This sheet I didn't come up with myself. I got it from the Marketing Operators podcast. They were giving this resource away for free about 6 to 12 months ago. We've been using it ever since internally, and we've just changed the branding to our own. But this ultimately does come from the Marketing Operators podcast. Now, the concept here, for those that have never heard of rolling reach before, is that you go into your ad account and you click maximum within the reports or just within the ad campaign dashboard. And you want to look at the maximum amount of reach within the account up to a specific date. And so for this account, they were started in early 2022. So you go to the very first day the ad account ever existed, and you go up to March 2024, and you grab that reach number. And then what you do is you do that again. You start from the very start of the ad account, but you go one extra month out. And from there, what you're looking at is, well, how much extra additional reach did we get in that extra month? And so you're looking at effectively net new users reached on the platform. And this is the calculation that you start to run here. And so each month, you start at the beginning of the account, you go out another month, and you find that it grows over time, which is good. It means every single month you're reaching some new users that have never seen your ads before. And you can actually just calculate what that exact new reach is by just minusing off the previous month to this month. Now, what ends up happening, particularly on an account like this that has had months where they've spent $500,000 in Australia alone, this is Australia only, is that you start to approach a situation where there's really not many more people that you could possibly reach. And I'll give some context here. This brand is only for females. And so, yes, males could buy the product, but it would be maybe 2% of sales or less. And so it doesn't really make sense to even target males, at least with the current messaging and the current angle. And in fact, males would actually never purchase this product for their partners because it's just a little bit of a complex product to buy in the first place. And so what that immediately does is it restricts the actual total addressable market within Australia down to about 13.41 million. Then we really need to take this a step further, because a lot of that 13.5 million is actually below 18, which isn't within the target demographic, or above 50, which also really isn't within the target demographic. Very, very little purchasing from either of those age demographics. And so if we just restrict down to 18 to 50, and we look through ChatGPT's calculation, it thinks that there's approximately 5.6 million women in Australia aged between 18 to 50. And so that's really the TAM. That's the total addressable market. That's everyone we could possibly sell to. Now, the reach on the ad account right now is 9 million. And so we have reached effectively nearly double our TAM. And so when you're in this situation, obviously the first piece of advice that you want to give, particularly Blue Sense, because our whole orientation and really a gap in the Australian market that I see right now is that there isn't a heavy focus on new customer acquisition. And so you end up with ad accounts, almost every ad account that I look at when I audit every week, there's just tons of spend going into existing customers. It's not incremental. And you could immediately cut 20, 30K a month out of existing customers, just move that into new customer acquisition and unlock a massive delta in new customer revenue just through better budget allocation and zero negative impact on returning customers. And so this is a massive gap, and this is something that you still want to focus on. But at a certain point, you go, do we need to really reach more people? We've reached 9.1 million people in Australia, and our TAM is really like 5 million. And so is the goal here to continue to reach more and more and more people? Or is the goal to reserve to the same people more effectively with new offers, with new products, with novelty and creative, with new maybe influencer collaborations? Is that the goal? And that probably is the goal, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, like, we don't have 9 million existing customers. So we're not reserving to existing customers here necessarily, but we're reserving to warm audiences, to people that we have already reached. And so you can see the cost per net new reach here has exploded. Okay, they used to reach new users for about 40 cents, and now they're spending nearly $2 to reach a new user. But that's fine because we've reached everyone. These new users probably aren't even profitable. Now, with that being said, as the demographic ages, you continue to get new users that enter into your target demographic. And so the TAM is ever expanding. It's not really ever expanding. It's kind of always at 5.5 million, but people are churning out of the top and net new users are coming in from the bottom. And so technically your total reach can increase forever. Like if we look over a 50-year time horizon, they could reach 40, 50, 60 million people, and they would all technically be within the target demographic because you continue to have new people enter and new people churn out of that target demo criteria. But with that being said, this shouldn't really be a massive focus. And so, yes, you can go and provide the advice. And I see this on LinkedIn a fair bit, which is that as you start to reach these kinds of cost per net new reach explosions in price, well, what you should then go and do is you should start running reach campaigns, or you should start running traffic campaigns, or you should start running conversion-based campaigns with view content, because that's going to allow you to cheaply get in front of net new users and drive your cost per net new reach down. But I think that's the wrong optimization function in this particular instance. I don't think the goal is for us to go and reach new people that have never seen our ads before for as cheap as possible, because I pretty much almost guarantee that they're not the highest quality users that we actually want. If we've already hit 9.1 million people, who are we hitting with these other campaign types? Instead, the other campaign types are probably an effective way, theoretically, and we don't have the incrementality studies to back this up yet, but we're working on them and we will release them once we have them, is that theoretically we could use these other campaign types to reserve to the 9.1 million people that we've already reached, but at a much lower CPM. And so I think that's a much more compelling argument, and the phrasing of that argument is a lot better than that we're just trying to get our rolling reach up. I hear this from people pushing MMMs as well and above the line media. I literally got told this the other day, which was that you should go into above the line and start running high budget YouTube campaigns as well as high budget TV campaigns, localized in particular areas so that you can measure incremental impact, because it's going to give you net new reach that you otherwise wouldn't have on the Facebook platform. And my question kind of there is, but we've reached 9.1 million unique users on the Facebook and Instagram platform. Are there really more people here? How many more people are there that we would reach through other channels? Like, I fail to believe that there is a magical another 5 million people available through above the line media when the population is already capped at 5 mil within our target demographic. Now, that's different from, is there going to be lift from going above the line? I think there's going to be lift. I think there's a very compelling argument that at these kind of budgets, you want to go into other media channels. Absolutely. I think there probably is incrementality there. But the incrementality is not in finding new users that have never seen your ads before. The incrementality is having more of an omni-channel presence and having touch points with those users in different points of their life, which is contributing to the customer conversion journey. And so we're actually just reserving to the same people that already know about us, that have already seen an ad before, but we're likely doing it at much lower CPMs, because generally TV and above the line media has considerably lower CPMs in most cases, from what I'm aware, I'm not an expert on above the line, than on Meta. You can generally get $12 to $13 CPMs on YouTube or on above the line TV placements, whereas on Meta, you're likely at a minimum of $25 to $30 CPMs. If you're targeting the US, you're up at 40 to 50 AUD. On the other hand, if you are a 7-figure business, so you're not spending $250,000 a month or $500,000 a month in ANZ, or a relative country maybe in Europe that has a similar population size, well, this actually starts to become a very helpful exercise, in my opinion, for you, particularly if you have a large TAM. Because in this case, let's say that they weren't at 9 million, and let's just theoretically go and take all these numbers and let's just reduce them down to 30% of where they currently are. And let's do an override and rerun these figures. Well, now I'd be looking at these numbers and going, well, we've only hit 2.7 million people in the Australian demographic. We know we have a TAM of about 5.5. We can probably go 6 to 7 if we include gifting and some bleed out into people outside of that strict restriction of our demographic, in which case we really do want to focus on not letting our cost per net new reach go up too heavily, because what might be happening within the account is that we're just reserving to existing customers or existing people that have already seen the ads too much, when there's really quick wins in just going cold. And so the metric that you really want to watch in this instance, and let's just change the numbers back because these metrics aren't going to be real unless we go back to the actual real figures, is that you want to look at your reach each month. And so this is different from rolling reach. When we're looking at reach, we're just looking at the particular month. And so to get this number right here that I'm highlighting, you would go into the ad account and you would look from April 1st to April 31st. And that's your reach. Now your rolling reach is looking from the first date that the ad account was ever created to April 31st. Well, April 30th actually, because the 31st doesn't exist. And then from there, what you can do is you can find the amount of new reach that you got in April. You can divide that by the actual reach in the account, and you can get a percentage of monthly new reached users. And so what you're effectively getting here, how this metric works, is what percentage of your budget is going into reaching new audiences, new users that have never seen an ad before from your business. And so you can see for this brand, 16%, 25%, 28%, and then recently this has heavily declined down to 8%. And in fact, if I reran these numbers for March and April, this would honestly be down at like 6% now. And so what that means is that almost every single dollar in the Meta ad account is going towards people that have already seen an ad from them before. Now that's completely fine because they're an 8-figure business and they're spending tons and they've hit the entire target demographic. But if you aren't spending a lot, if you haven't hit your entire target demographic, you really don't want this number down at 8%. In fact, I wouldn't really even be comfortable with it being in this 25% range. I'd really want the account going out and prospecting and finding new users and bringing them in to the ecosystem or trying to convert them through a customer journey. And so this is really a resource worth looking at. This is something worth putting together. It's worth calculating this row specifically to have clarity on how much of your budget each month is going into finding new users. And then obviously the first 6 minutes of this video was a huge clause and disclaimer about the fact that all of this really doesn't matter if you've hit your entire target demo. Like, I don't think there's a really convincing argument here to say the cost per net new reach should be really focused on to keep it low. You've hit everyone. I think now the objective is to keep CPMs as low as possible whilst continuing to reserve to the same users. I think that's a more compelling argument. But even then, ultimately, at the end of the day, the optimization is the highest ROI on spend. It doesn't really matter what your CPMs is if your conversion rates are going down. And so it's just a balance of the two. And you start to be able to introduce lower CPM methods into an account of this size with a decent argument behind it. I would just really like to have incrementality studies to prove whether that is viable, which is something that we're working on internally at the moment.